I have to be honest with you. I had a moment this morning that it almost completely derailed this entire recording session.
Oh, no.
It wasn't anything huge. The house is fine. Nobody's hurt. It was an email, just a regular kind of passive-aggressive email.
Oh, the dreaded email.
Yeah, from a vendor about a deadline. And I read it, and it was like a switch flipped. Suddenly, I wasn't a rational person anymore. I was just hijacked.
I think we all know that feeling.
My heart rate just spiked, my jaw was clenched, and for like 20 minutes I was completely useless, just pacing around the kitchen having this furious, totally imaginary argument with a guy named Steve.
We have all had fights with an imaginary Steve in the kitchen. It's pretty much a universal experience.
Exactly. It felt like a storm system just moved in and parked itself right over my head. And the most frustrating part is I knew I was overreacting.
The logical brain is still there watching.
Yeah. But knowing it didn't stop the feeling. I was just a passenger, and the anger was driving the bus. And that is exactly why I was so desperate to get into our discussion today.
Right.
Because all the research we have sitting here on the table, it claims that this passenger feeling isn't a given. It claims we can actually get back in the driver's seat.
It's a pretty bold claim, but yeah, the framework we're looking at suggests you don't have to be a victim of your own internal weather. You can, in fact, become the architect of it.
So today we're diving back into this ancient Hermetic philosophy, focusing on a concept they call mental transmutation. And just to be clear, this isn't about, waving a magic wand.
Not at all. This is about the mechanics of psychology. It's about moving from a state of being purely reactive to a state of, let's call it, emotional governance.
It sounds practical.
It's very practical. It's also difficult, but it's arguably one of the most important skills a person can learn.
If this episode helps you, please hit like and subscribe for the next one, because I think it's going to take more than one session for us to master our own minds.
Just a little bit.
So let's start with the basics. The name itself, mental transmutation. If we strip away the mystical-sounding language, what are we really talking about here?
In the simplest possible terms, mental transmutation is the deliberate act of changing your own inner mental state.
So emotional regulation.
It is, but it's emotional regulation with a very specific blueprint for how emotions actually work. It's the ability to recognize you're in a certain condition, say anger or anxiety, and then to consciously use your will and your attention to shift that condition into something else.
Okay. And the source text, the Kybalion, how does it define it?
It says mind as well as metals and elements may be transmuted from state to state, degree to degree, condition to condition.
I want to pause on that phrase, metals and elements, because that immediately brings up the central metaphor here, which is alchemy.
Right.
And when most people hear alchemy, they think of, old wizards in robes trying to turn lead into gold to get rich.
Which is the popular misconception. And to be fair, there were certainly people trying to do exactly that. But the Hermetic philosophers, the people behind these texts, they claimed that the physical alchemy was always an allegory. It was a code.
A code for what?
For the human internal experience. I mean, think about the properties of lead. It's heavy, it's dull, it's dense.
That creates drag.
Exactly. Now, think about the emotions that feel like lead.
Depression, apathy. That feeling I had this morning with the email, that heavy sinking dread, that's lead.
Those are the base metals of our emotional life. And now contrast that with gold. Gold is bright, it doesn't tarnish, it's highly conductive.
So the gold emotions would be things like courage, clarity, calm.
Purpose. The true alchemist wasn't trying to fill their pockets. They were trying to figure out how to take a heavy, leaden emotional state and transmute it, change its very vibration into a golden one.
I really like that distinction, because usually when we feel bad, our first instinct is to try and change the world. If I'm angry about the email, I want to change Steve. I want Steve to apologize. I want the traffic to move faster. But the alchemist is saying, what?
The alchemist says, leave the world alone. The world is the world. Steve is Steve. The problem isn't the stuff out there. The problem is the state in here.
Oh.
You don't try to destroy the radio tower just because you don't like the song that's playing. You just turn the dial on your own receiver.
Changing state, not stuff. That's kind of the mantra for today. But here's where I get a little skeptical.
Okay.
Because it sounds nice, just turn the dial. But in the moment, that dial feels rusty. It feels stuck. When I was in that rage this morning, if someone had told me to just turn the dial to happiness, I probably would have thrown something at them.
And you would have been right to, because that's not what this is. That's toxic positivity, and it's a complete misunderstanding of the process. You can't just flip a switch from rage to joy. The mind doesn't work that way.
So how does it work? This gets us to the core mechanic in the research, right?
Huh.
The principle of polarity.
This is the key. If you get this one concept, the rest of it falls into place. The principle of polarity states that opposites are actually the same thing, just differing in degree.
Okay, stop right there. Opposites are the same thing. That sounds like nonsense on the surface. Hot is not the same as cold.
Is it not? Let's look at the thermometer. It's the classic example for a reason. Picture one in your mind. At the bottom, you have freezing. At the top, you have boiling.
Right.
Now, where on that scale does cold officially stop and heat officially begin? Is there a solid black line you cross?
No, of course not. It's just a gradient, a smooth scale.
It's just a gradient. Hot and cold are not two separate things. You don't have a substance called hot and a substance called cold. You just have temperature. Cold is simply a low degree of temperature. Heat is a high degree of it.
Okay, I can get on board with that for physics. But for emotions, are you really telling me that fear and courage are the same thing?
Yes, they are just two poles of the exact same scale. We could call that scale confidence or maybe security.
So at the bottom of the scale.
At the low end, the vibration is very slow, very heavy. We label that feeling fear. As you move up the scale, the vibration increases. You might hit worry, then concern, then caution, until you reach security, then courage, and way at the top, maybe something like invincibility.
So it's one continuous line.
One sliding scale.
Yeah.
And that's a huge mental shift because we tend to think of fear as this, alien invader we have to kill.
Right, something to be destroyed. But you're saying it's just low vibration courage.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that leads to what the text calls the law of compatibility, which is why just be happy doesn't work. You can only transmute things that are in the same class. You can only slide along the scale you're already on.
Give me an example of what you can't do.
You can't turn fear into love directly. They're on completely different scales. It's like trying to turn the color red into the direction north. They don't measure the same thing.
But you can turn fear into courage.
Because they're on the same line. You can turn hate into love because they're both degrees of what we might call emotional attachment.
That explains why love can turn to hate so quickly in, like, a bad breakup.
Yes, exactly. The emotional intensity is already high up on the scale. It just flips polarity from positive to negative.
Yeah.
But you rarely see someone go from total indifference straight to passionate hate. That's a much bigger jump.
So if I'm feeling fear, my goal isn't to jump to a totally different emotional universe. It's just to slide up the thermometer a little bit.
You're polarizing toward the positive pole. And here's the key part that addresses your poster comment from earlier. You move by degrees.
By degrees.
The mistake everyone makes is trying to go from the freezing point straight to the boiling point, from deep depression to ecstasy in 5 seconds. The vibrational gap is just too wide. It's impossible.
So what's a realistic goal then?
To move up a few degrees, to go from depression to apathy.
But apathy sounds bad.
Is it, though? Apathy is a higher vibrational state than active, painful depression. Then from apathy, you can maybe move to boredom. Boredom is better than apathy because it has a little restless energy in it.
And from boredom maybe to curiosity?
Exactly. And then interest. You climb the ladder one rung at a time. It's incremental.
That's actually so relieving to hear because I can't do joy when I'm in a pit, but I can probably manage boredom.
And boredom is progress. That's the work.
Okay, so before we get into the practical examples, there's one more trap I want to cover. When we feel these lead states, our instinct is to fight them. I tried to fight the anger this morning. I was telling myself, stop being angry. This is stupid. Don't be angry.
And how did that work out for you?
It made it worse. I got angry that I was angry.
Of course. That's the old saying, what you resist persists. The sources are extremely clear on this. Suppression always fails. Trying to kill out a negative emotion is like trying to shovel darkness out of a room.
Shovel darkness.
Imagine you're in a pitch-black basement.
Yeah.
You hate the dark. So you grab a shovel and you start frantically digging at the air, trying to throw the darkness out the window. You'll just exhaust yourself and the room will still be dark.
Because darkness isn't a thing. It's not a substance you can move. It's just the absence of something else.
Correct. It is the absence of light. And the text uses this exact analogy to explain the concept of replacement. If you want to get rid of the darkness, you don't fight it. You ignore the darkness, you walk over to the window, and you open the shutters. You let the light in.
And in emotional terms, opening the shutters is what?
It's shifting your attention. The core axiom here is energy follows attention. When you were pacing around your kitchen thinking, I need to stop being angry, where was all of your attention?
On the anger, 100%.
You were feeding the very beast you were trying to starve. Transmutation requires you to fix your attention on the desired positive state, not the current negative one. You focus on the gold. You think about what calm feels like.
Even if you can only imagine it for a second.
Yes. By bringing that higher vibration into your mind, the lower vibration, the darkness, it just has to recede. Light and dark can't occupy the same space at the same time.
This sounds a lot like what modern psychology calls cognitive reappraisal.
It's the exact same mechanism, just with older, more metaphorical language. In therapy, if you're anxious about public speaking, a therapist might tell you to relabel the physical feeling.
Right. My hands aren't shaking because I'm terrified. They're shaking because I'm excited.
Exactly. You change the label. You turn the dial on the scale from fear to excitement. The physical energy, the adrenaline is the same, but the polarity shifts from negative to positive.
Okay, let's ground this. We've talked about the theory, alchemy, polarity, replacement. Now I want to see how this actually works. We've got 3 scenarios lined up that I think everyone listening has dealt with.
Let's do it.
Scenario 1, work, the overwhelm state. It's Monday morning, you open your laptop, and the inbox is a nightmare. You have a huge project due that you haven't even started, and you just feel that physical weight on your chest. You freeze.
A classic low vibration state,
Yeah.
a mix of fear and inertia.
My instinct in that moment is to just close the laptop and go hide.
The flight response. So to transmute this, we can actually look to the Stoics, who were masters of this kind of mental alchemy. Marcus Aurelius, for instance, his strategy was to radically shrink his time horizon.
Shrink the horizon. What does that mean?
Well, think about why you're overwhelmed in that moment. It's not the single email in front of you. It's because your mind has jumped into the future.
Right. I'm imagining the project failing, my boss being angry, the deadline being missed, all of it at once.
You're reacting to a future that hasn't happened. You're basically hallucinating a catastrophe. So to slide up the scale from anxiety toward focus, you have to cut off the future. The opposite of overwhelmed is present.
So the transmutation is shifting attention from the huge, scary outcome to the tiny, immediate step.
Yes. You literally say to yourself, I do not have to finish the entire project right now. I just have to open the document. Or I don't have to answer 50 emails. I just have to read this one.
That feels almost too small to work.
It has to be small. Remember, you're looking for a degree on the scale you can actually reach. You can't reach project finished, but you can reach open document. And once you take that tiny action, the state shifts. You move from paralysis into motion.
The lead turns into just a little bit of gold.
A tiny fleck, but it's a start.
I love that. Okay, scenario 2. This is the one that got me this morning. Relationships. That flash of reactive anger.
The flashpoint.
The flashpoint. A partner says that one thing that always gets you. A driver cuts you off, and you feel that instantaneous heat.
A high-energy negative state. The pole here is usually hostility or defensiveness.
And the immediate instinct is to fire back, to attack.
Which is where most of us fail.
Yeah.
Because we try to go from, I want to yell at you, I am a calm, forgiving saint in 1 second.
The impossible jump.
It's fake. Your body is flooded with cortisol. You can't vibrate at love. Yeah. So you need a middle rung. The Roman philosopher Seneca had the best remedy for this. He just called it delay.
Delay.
He saw anger as a temporary madness. And he said the only cure is time. So your first goal isn't to be happy or forgiving. Your goal is simply to be silent. You're moving up the scale from hostility to detachment.
Detachment feels doable. I don't have to, like what you said, I just have to not react to it right now.
Precisely. You slide the dial from combat to diplomacy. You can physically remove yourself. You say, I'm feeling really heated right now. I'm going to take 5 minutes before I respond.
That's the action part. You're replacing the lashing out with a firm boundary.
Yes. You're using the energy of the anger, not suppressing it. You're using that energy to build a wall of safety around the conversation rather than a weapon to attack with.
Okay. Final one, scenario 3, habits. This is the drift. The feeling of sloth. You're on the couch, you've been doom scrolling for an hour, you feel gross and lethargic, but you can't seem to stop.
This is that heavy, cold, slow lead, the lowest vibration state.
And people say, just get motivated, but you can't think your way out of that state. Your brain feels like mush.
You can't think your way out because the mind is harmonized with the body. The body is still, so the mind is still. To transmute this, we have to flip the script. We apply the law of action.
Action precedes mood.
It's the golden rule. You don't wait to feel like doing it. You do the thing to change the feeling. And the key is a simple anchor routine. Something so small, it requires almost zero willpower.
Like what?
Putting on your running shoes, not going for the run, just putting on the shoes, or standing up and drinking one glass of water.
Why does something so tiny work?
Physics. Static friction is always harder to overcome than kinetic friction. It takes more energy to get a stopped object moving than to keep it moving. That tiny action, the shoes, the water, it breaks the static friction of your lethargy.
It shifts the polarity from passive to active.
And once you're in motion, it's easier to stay in motion. The physical action forces the mental state to realign. You are literally behaving your way into a new feeling.
That makes so much sense. So just to recap the examples. For overwhelm, shrink your focus to the present. For reactive anger, use delay to find detachment. For lethargy, use a tiny physical action to create momentum.
Exactly. In every case, we're just sliding the scale by a few degrees.
Mm-hmm.
We're not using magic. We're using mental mechanics.
I want to make this super tangible for anyone listening right now. We put together a little mental walkthrough. We're calling it the Transmutation Ladder. It's a 5-step process you can do in your head.
A great tool to have in your back pocket for those hijack moments.
Okay, so let's walk through it. Step 1, name the current state.
This is the foundation. You have to name it to tame it. You just pause and you say to yourself without any judgment, I am feeling anxious right now, or I am feeling resentful.
Why is just naming it so important?
Because it creates separation. The second you name the emotion, you become the observer of the emotion rather than the emotion itself. You're not the storm anymore. You're the person watching the storm on a radar screen. It lowers the intensity immediately.
Okay, step 2, identify the opposite pole.
You need a destination. You have to know where you're trying to go. If you're anxious, the other end of that scale is calm confidence. If you're resentful, the other end might be understanding or appreciation.
But, and this is the crucial part we've been talking about, step 3 is choose a middle rung.
Do not aim for the top. This is where you apply the principle of degrees. If you're at a 1 out of 10, don't aim for a 10. Aim for a 3 or a 4. If you're furious, aim for neutrality. If you're terrified, aim for curiosity.
Right.
Pick a state that feels reachable and honest.
Right, because if you try to lie to yourself, your brain just won't buy it.
It will reject it completely.
Step 4, choose one phrase.
This is your mental script, a little mantra that acts as a tuning fork for that middle rung state. If your goal is neutrality, your phrase might be, this is just a moment in time, or I can handle this one thing, repeat it in your head.
And finally, step 5, choose one proof action.
You have to anchor the mental shift in physical reality. Do one small thing that proves you've shifted. Sit up straighter. Take one deep, slow breath. Open a window. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's a deliberate action that tells your body, I am back in the driver's seat.
And after that,
you just commit to the practice. You accept that you'll have to climb this ladder again and again. You don't beat yourself up if you slip back down. You just find the next rung and pull.
that makes it feel so much more manageable, but I know people listening might still be skeptical. So let's run through some of the common misunderstandings really quickly.
Let's do it.
Misunderstanding number 1.
Mm-hmm.
This is just repression, you know? You're just telling me to stuff my feelings down and pretend to be calm.
That's a critical distinction to make. Repression is denial. Repression is saying, I'm not angry while your jaw is clenched. Transmutation starts with radical honesty. I am angry. You acknowledge the vibration, but instead of burying it, you elevate it. You turn the raw energy into a structured boundary.
So repression traps the energy, transmutation releases it in a new form.
Perfectly said.
Okay, misunderstanding number 2. This creates instant happiness.
And we know that's not true. This is mental weightlifting. Sometimes the absolute best you can do is move from despair to resignation. And you have to learn to see that as a victory. Resignation is functional. It's progress, not magic.
Misunderstanding 3. This ignores reality. Somebody might say, my life is actually falling apart. It's not just a state.
The external vet, the stuff is real. We never deny the stuff. But the state of panic you're in is your interpretation. And a state of panic is a terrible navigator. Transmutation just changes the state so you can navigate the stuff more effectively.
You're steadying your hands on the wheel during the storm?
You're not pretending the storm isn't there.
Okay, number 4. I can use this to change other people. Like, I'm going to transmute my grumpy partner.
The classic trap. The sources are very clear on this.
Yes.
You have no direct control over another person's mind. You can only influence them by what's called induction.
Induction.
Think of 2 tuning forks. If you strike one, the other one nearby will start to vibrate at that same frequency. But you have to be the first tuning fork. You have to stabilize your own frequency first. If you embody a deep, unshakable calm, people around you will eventually start to entrain to that rhythm. But you have to go first.
Be the tuning fork. I like that. And finally, misunderstanding number 5. This is all purely mental. I can just think my way to a new life.
And that violates the principle of action. The mental work is the blueprint, but you still have to build a house. Like we said with the habit example, action anchors the new vibration. You can't just meditate on courage. Eventually, you have to do the brave thing.
The thought creates the potential. The action makes it real.
That's the formula.
We have covered so much ground today. Let's try to boil this all down into the absolute core principles for everyone.
Okay, the essentials. First, mental transmutation is the art of changing your internal state, not external events. You're the architect.
Right. State, not stuff.
Next, polarity means opposites, like fear and courage are just different degrees on the same sliding scale.
You can slide along that scale by shifting your attention.
And remember, don't fight the darkness, just open a window to the light. Replacement always beats suppression.
And start small. Aim for that middle rung on the ladder.
Crucially, action anchors the new state. You have to behave your way into the new feeling to make it stick.
And finally,
mastery isn't a destination. It's a practice of constant, small adjustments. It's the skill of catching yourself and just correcting your course over and over again.
constant small adjustments. That really takes the pressure off. It means I didn't fail this morning. I forgot to adjust, and I can try again.
The scale is always there. You can always grab the next rung.
We're going to wrap it up there. This has been a heavy one, but hopefully a really practical one. Next time, we are zooming way, way out. We're going to tackle episode 4, the big mind hypothesis.
Oh, that's a big one.
It is. We're going to discuss the Hermetic concept that the universe itself is mental and what that might mean for our own potential. It gets pretty wild.
It connects everything we talked about today to the largest possible picture. It asks the question, if our individual minds can transmute emotions, what can the universal mind transmute?
I cannot wait to get into that. Thanks for being here. If you want the full series, check the playlist, and please like and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode.